One by one, employees from the tourism sector show up here at the National Insurance Board seeking financial assistance.
Wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown. Accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. There's no telling who that it's naming, for the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing.
And the team around him are absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
And that's something that I think a lot of us are very, very enthused about, because I certainly believe it is such a world of opportunity, and it's such a world of opportunity for everybody, Darcy.
Yes, no, yes. I think what makes me and my old man, who's not that old, successful is that we're both can add value to the process in different ways. I'm more technical because I'm closer to the modern age. I'm a digital baby, whereas he understands more of the connections and the business environment, and as well as long-term strategic thinking, things of that nature. So I think it's where the right idea, like an exchange, where ideas and different types of people can meet, as you say, with a level playing field. Where you can really see this growth of things.
Absolutely. The interaction is fantastic. And that's why also the intergenerational interaction is really interesting. You're a digital native, 100%. I'm what I like to call the bold generation, like your dad. So I was born analog, but I'm living digitally. It's got nothing to do with...
Oh, okay. I get you. I understand you now.
But it's vitally important because, okay, my way of living digitally may not be the way you live digitally, but at the same time, I understand a great deal about how essentially you put together the building blocks of technology and how that can be used. Different people use it in different ways. But the empowering factor of technology at the moment is mind-boggling. In the late 1990s, I built a publishing system, and it was developed for me. We spent $1 million on that. Now, we could do the same thing more reliably with WordPress for no more than $5,000.
Yeah. It's
and if you look at that march of technology,
yeah, it's brought creation down to the tools of creation are so minuscule to what you can create, the value you can add.
Absolutely,
it's amazing.
You look at e-commerce, you look at transactional tools there, you look at exchanges. Okay, you will not take on the New York Stock Exchange, but you can have an exchange with the technology at a fraction of the cost of the tens of millions that it cost them to build their technology 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
And I mean, not just in the exchange world. I mean, even in the creative space, like you could get a full. The Adobe suite of software is like a full studio.
Yes.
Even an advanced Hollywood studio 10 years ago didn't have that level of tech.
Precisely.
And for $80 a month. I mean, it's incredible what's out there.
So what's at your fingertips is incredible, because content creation is beyond belief. I mean, when I started in the content creation business and I was writing for car magazines when I was at school, one of the biggest problems I had was I kept running into the unions, so I couldn't write for some publications because they were all heavily unionized.
Yeah.
There was no concept of technology whatsoever. I would write things out, type them up, print them out. Then I got a word processing machine that was running 256K of RAM. I will tell
you were doing good. You were doing good.
Well, I was doing really, really good. And even then, you were printing stuff out on rubbish dot matrix printers and still posting it to people. And you look at how joined up the dots are now, where you and I can chat by over the internet. Here we are on live video. The thing that was in sci-fi 30 years ago, when I was a child, I mean, that was sci-fi. The idea that you could just pick something up, press a couple of buttons and talk to somebody.
Who would have imagined the Jetsons would have been right?
No, totally, absolutely incredible. And you look at these sorts of these amazing devices. I mean, this one's a Huawei. It's a couple of years old, but I mean, this is incredible. It's got Facebook. It's got social media of all kinds, Instagram, Pinterest. It's got all my documents. I can go in. I've actually edited an edition of Exchange Invest, my newsletter on it, everything like that. And you know what's incredible, Darcy? They've even managed to build a telephone into it. So
you can even make calls with it.
Yes, they can even make calls with it. I mean, that's genius. That's such innovation. You just cannot believe what's going on. But seriously, the amount of processing power you have here, look at it. Last year we were in the 50th anniversary of the moon landings, and you think about the power of what they were doing with no spreadsheets. They had set squares, they had slide rules, they were doing their math all nights long and literally writing them all down with a pencil while plugging them into computers that essentially nowadays we would call a calculator. And it's incredible what ingenuity can do. Now, empowered with what we've got in front of us and the fact that you can have a digital camera in the comfort of your own home and office that's essentially as good as they can shoot movies with just 30 years ago is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and the cost is just it's negligible. Yeah,
we trying to set up TV studios 15 years ago in London. It was going to cost us $25,000 for the camera. You can buy an equivalent. You can buy a camera today for $1,000, $2,000 that will do just as good a job as that did, and it's fully digital. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's there. The future is very, very bright, and I think as we move into this COVID and post-COVID world, we need to make sure to empower all of the people in a society to allow them to access these kind of tools, because then they can export that. These are, anything that's created in this new world can be exported very easily because it's a digital file. Totally. So it's like the old-fashioned way of exports of physical goods is it's difficult. It requires a lot of moving parts. Let's take like an apple, or we grow mangoes here. Let's use a mango as an example. You would have to farm that mango, so there's that whole process of physically growing it. Then you have to store it and transport it, and then you got to find a market on the other side. It's a lot of moving parts. Whereas a digital file is just kind of, you set up a website, you say, you find your customer base to come in. They say, yeah, I'll watch that file that you created. They pay you digitally, and then you send it to them. And all of that kind of happened without really those many, the expense of the old way. So there's great opportunity.
It's the speed. I mean, I can have it instantaneously. We can watch each other on live streams around the world. We can talk in real time, and you can send people information, and you can sell people information so quickly. So therefore, it becomes very interesting. And I mean, if you look at, for example, my niche business, Exchange Invest. So what's the secret sauce of Exchange Invest? It's nothing to do with the productive technology. That's incredibly simple and actually becomes simpler year on year. It's the skill set. It's that magic 10,000 hours of knowing more about exchanges than the next guy, and then being able to use that.
Probably the next two guys. You're being humble.
Well, it's understanding. Thank you. It's understanding and being able to collate. So there's a manner of something which I think is quite important in the digital age, which is the digital age is great if you can be organized and you can think well.
Yes.
And thinking well is not something that large organizations have traditionally done. No. Large organizations, very hierarchical. It's all about just advancing something, and therefore going forward on the linear. Lateral thinking is definitely the thing. And of course, possibly the most famous citizen of Malta is indeed Edward de Bono, the man who basically invented lateral thinking. Now, looking at what Dr. de Bono has said and done over the years, the more I look at the digital world, the more I see the way to profit is understanding what you do. Because let's face it, as you say, Adobe Suite, $80 a month gets you an incredible amount of power. But if you've no idea what content to create, essentially you are the human dumb terminal.
Yeah. We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsor. At Arawak X, we understand that for businesses to grow, they need capital to hire staff, buy equipment, and fuel innovative ideas. We support this process by using technology, years of business acumen, and a world-class team to get business the investment they need to get to the next level. If you are a business owner and need between $100,000 and $3 million, contact us today. We will schedule a meeting over the phone or video chat. Get on the path to your dreams. Arawak X. Dream bigger. Think direct ownership of the Bahamian pie isn't for you? Think again. At Arawak X, we believe in the ingenuity of the Bahamian people. These times are uncertain and unprecedented, but we know that in every crisis there is an opportunity to add value to people's lives. To this, we understand that new businesses will be formed and old ideas whose time has finally come will be realized. We see this in industries long been ignored by traditional financial services and by society at large, particularly in our digital businesses, agribusiness, fishing, manufacturing, and even new touristic ventures. Due to our present circumstances, these businesses have finally been brought to the forefront. Arawak X seeks to give your ideas and your participation a means of making your financial dreams a reality. We give businesses and investors tools needed to finance them. Business is a complicated thing, with many moving and changing parts that often require multidisciplinary teams to turn ideas into reality. While no one can truly say which businesses will make it and thrive and which will not, there are certain formulaic traits that successful businesses have. This is why we here at Arawak X place such a high emphasis on corporate governance and the structure it brings to give companies the best chance at growth and expansion. Arawak X operates a regulated and financially inclusive platform that combines modern technology with best practices and a world-class team to bring together businesses and investors at every level, allowing wider participation in ownership of companies. So here's how it works. Investors, both foreign and local, individual and institutional, can view offerings and directly invest into these companies. We have spent several years and invested greatly in our staff and technology processes. We are doing this by greatly expanding the ease of investment. In other words, people will be able to participate in promising new ventures for as little as $50. The ethos of our institution is that of financial inclusion. And in this spirit, we ourselves will be a publicly traded company. In these next few months, as we roll out our platform, know that we view ourselves as an integral part of a wider societal change, the change that brings ownership, opportunity to everyone. We are pleased to work with our partners in industry, government, civil society, and the people in making the Bahamas the best little nation on this planet. As a first step, we have put together a free online course, the Intelligent Bahamian Investor Masterclass, that will give you some of the basics to investing. This can be found at invest242.com. Arawak X, dream bigger. So yeah, this past year has been crazy.
The UK has left the European Union.
The outbreak is very high risk.
Emergency order.
There are fears that the Dow will drop.
The job loss numbers staggering.
Some retail traders are cashing in.
And the role that it's been on, you've got a number of factors here.
Join me and the over 5,000 viewers on The New Economy. There I interview innovators, technologists, financiers, regulators, and business people on what's next in the new economy. Season 2. Join me and my guests every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. on our TV. The New Economy. What's next? Yeah.
Because the software is just there to do whatever you want. So you must be the person who decides, wow, I'm going to create the next Harry Potter, or I'm going to write a report about how to make better mango production. I mean, whatever that is. And therefore, there are lots and lots of things around, but the wonderful thing is you have this whole library around you. When I started in business, I used to have to go to the central library in Belfast, go through everything physically. Now, whether it's, anti-Google, Uncle Wikipedia, any of those sorts of things, I can find so much information online. I can enrich myself instantaneously, and it doesn't matter where I am. I can be the most obscure island, never see a soul in the Bahamas, and yet be incredibly connected to the world.
Yeah, this digital world has kind of gotten rid of borders in many ways.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much opportunity if you're willing to look outside at the world. I've never really been that interested in doing business solely in the Bahamas for the reasons of it's just not 400,000 people is not that many, that many people for you to run a business of any scale. So for me, I was kind of raised in a family that's very international, outward-looking, based at home but outward-looking. So I think that now that COVID and the lockdowns and this is actually the longest time in my adult life I haven't left the country of the Bahamas to go for a trip somewhere or to go visit something, and it's strange not being able to travel. It's strange, but at the same time, it's enlightening that you can still reach out to people. You can still make deep connections. You can still form community. You can still do all kinds of things over the internet and monetize it.
Here's an interesting statistic for you. When lockdown took place, the number of telephone calls I received on Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whatever, doubled.
Yeah.
Why was that? It was because all the people who traditionally commute into the City of London or New York or wherever, they weren't commuting. So they didn't meet somebody on the platform at the station. They didn't meet somebody as they were getting onto the underground to go across town. They didn't meet somebody at the coffee bar in the foyer of their high-rise office. They had nobody to talk to at the water cooler because the only people at the water cooler were presumably their cat and their dog and their kids. And therefore, they couldn't have a substantive business conversation. So I suddenly became as accessible. I was the same distance, which was pick up your phone, hit dial. And that was so interesting because lots of other people were saying, I haven't heard from anybody for weeks. And I was like, wow, I can't even manage the volume of phone calls. I can't get my work done because everybody's ringing me up all the time, which is wonderful because all of a sudden you're on exactly the same basis. It's like children. I mean, all children's friends all live exactly the same distance from each other. You get into dad's car and he drives you there, and then you get out again. It's the same distance wherever they are.
Yeah. It's truly revolutionary because there's definitely someone at home watching this that is going to come up with a killer idea. Is going to be able to leverage all of this stuff. So it's important that we put the tools, the financial tools, the productivity tools, all of those kind of tools in these people's hands because I believe it may be a controversial idea now with climate change and things like that, but I do believe in unlimited growth. It just won't be in the physical space; it'll be in the digital space. So
Look, growth is incredible because the thing about growth is if you start dictating growth in a communist fashion, you end up with huge amounts of pollution, inefficiency, and problems. If you allow people to be inventive and do things, then suddenly you find a lot of problems resolve themselves because what is waste to some person can be treasure to somebody else. So
absolutely.
Look at simple businesses that have been created. People growing coffee beans by taking people growing stuff on even city farms, presumably probably mangoes in some places.
Well, we could use the
coffee beans that other people, coffee grains that people have thrown away because they're a very rich source.
Yeah, then they use them as for beauty products and stuff like that.
Precisely. And you look at the way people have been working around, air conditioning units and things like that, and suddenly they're creating vertical walls full of farming, and you're using a way to effectively create new ways to use the roofs of buildings, whether that's simply generating solar power or you're going all the way and you're actually growing produce. And those are the things that human ingenuity is fantastic because let's face it, When we were all in lockdown, there was no sport, but everybody got hooked on esports. And 5-10 years ago, people were going, actually, I think there's a market for people watching people playing World of Warcraft really, really well.
And I have to admit, like, when I was a teenager, I was a big video gamer. I don't have any time to do that anymore. But I do find myself mesmerized by the fact that, I'm watching someone play a game that I like, and I'm getting into it. It's like, It really is like, it's like sport. I can't dunk like how I wish I could. And since they're not playing, well, the NBA just started back up, but you get back into, you live in vicariously through these people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the amount of media and the way that media can be created is such a different thing. The way esports can fill a niche without having effectively created any sort of stadium footprint, any of the usual kind of issues. And that makes it very interesting because, again, if government can be flexible, there are amazing opportunities in these micro niches. And let's face it, for an economy such as the Bahamas, the last thing the Bahamas needs is a factory that's going to employ 20,000 people. But a niche industry doing some sort of weird offshoot of esports that employs and upskills 500 people is a huge boon for the economy.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much to, it only takes a little shift, and all of a sudden you've solved the problem. Our economies are not that big. So, when you, especially compared to like the great USA to the north, you find a little niche, and it might be a little niche market for the US, but that's, like you say, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 jobs. That would really matter. You'd feel that. Everybody would feel that.
It's a game changer, and you look as well at how that great thing in the whole concept of see a need, fill a need, and if you see something that's there, and this is where government comes in, because what government needs to be doing is not stopping people from trying to fill that need.
Yes.
Government needs to step back. And one of the problems we have, for example, in Europe is the European Union has this thing called the precautionary principle, which is essentially like your worst nightmare plumber visit. When your plumbing's gone wrong and your plumber turns up and he goes, his first thing he does is he looks at the leak and he goes, which means that's going to be expensive. Whereas actually what you need gung-ho ability. The government must be there. Don't get me wrong. Government must not allow criminality. It must
of course not. We're not talking about that.
Legal, reasonable decency. But people must be allowed to go out and do stuff, and kids must be allowed to go and make lemonade stands.
Yeah.
And everybody must be allowed to explore their inner entrepreneur from the basic level.
And because with business, the business person, when they're right, they hire people. Those people pay taxes, which hire teachers and pay government staff, and it truly is an ecosystem of people, and someone has to create the value. So you have to encourage that and foster it and nurture it. And I agree with you. They have to kind of step, maybe not out of the way, but to the side to allow business to do what it's doing.
I mean, there's going to be a sensible referee. What does the best referee do in the best sports? They stand to one side. If somebody fouls the ball, does something wrong, they step in. But at the point when you actually want to do is enable open play, because that's the most exciting thing you're going to get in any sport, whatever it is, whether it's motorsport, horse racing, basketball, whatever. And so that's how government has to do that. I think the problem always for government is it's always very worried about letting people go loose and go wild and stuff. And in a certain way, the reason the technology revolution has taken place is because government wasn't paying attention to it. And I don't mean any national government. The world's governments weren't paying attention to it.
It's also, by its nature, impossible to govern. So to take a traditional view of it, you're not controlling technology. That's what's made it so difficult even to tax. Because you can tax the income made of it, but you can't, or let me not say tax, let me say regulate. It's like you see all that issue going on with Facebook right now and whether or not they should censor certain topics or whatever. It becomes very, very, very difficult to even if you started to say, hey, let's pick a position let's regulate all hate speech, you would find yourself, you'd be employing 30, 40,000 people just to do that little thing, because it's just so massive, the amounts of data, the amounts of things, it would be impossible.
But then again, what's fascinating about that is, look at the amount of data that we get out of everything in our everyday life. Look at the original exchanges I worked on where people shouted at each other, and essentially you wrote something on a card, on a piece of paper. That was then, you telephoned somebody, they wrote it on another card, and then it was transacted. Now, they time-stamped it and stuff, so you could kind of get a forensic trail, but there was really none. Right now, today, in the Bahamas, you can use a gazillion brokers, and you can go and transact business in investment terms, and instantly it's electronically time-stamped. It's actually monitoring where your order goes. It can tell you literally which part of the internet your order is on when it goes around the place, and it's fabulous. And that's an empowering technology.
You know, there's all kinds of new opportunities that come once you have the information. And I think the old way was kind of, you get information and an advantage of information, you guard that with a secret, not understanding that in the new world, everybody kind of has the same information at the same time. So it requires a different way of looking at data and information than in the past.
Absolutely. And it's also about understanding that there is so much data and so much opportunity that you can take part of the opportunity, but you probably cannot take the whole world.
No one can. No one can.
Even today, the idea to, I think, somebody of your generation, that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Microsoft became semi-dominant in the entire provision of computer system, operating systems, and even browsers for the internet appears ludicrous. Because we're used to, at the absolute least, a massive oligopoly of 4, 5, 6 players in different areas. But nonetheless, that doesn't stop somebody going, wow, we should do TikTok. Now, I could have whiteboarded until the end of the world, but I certainly couldn't have invented TikTok. You might have been able to, I don't know. But, you know, there's a genius product. And on the streets below me, my next door neighbor's kids, they're making TikToks all day. They're making one at the moment, I think, from the noise they're making. And that's what's fantastic with this, because you know what's really good, Darcy, is when I lecture on entrepreneurship, and I lectured at a university in Poland for a couple of years, Nicholas Copernicus University, because he was born in that city, Turin. We created a startup ecosystem there, Mission to Run, which still operates, and actually still operates around the world. The thing about that is, our most important mantra was, I want you to succeed. That doesn't mean that I'm losing anything. No. The fundamental thing we have to understand here is economic growth helps everybody.
That's right.
And therefore, if I can profit, I don't profit by keeping you in subjugation. I profit by making sure you make money, because if you make money, then you buy more of my product and you buy somebody else's product and they come back to me. And you know, the whole growth picture is something we seem to sometimes lose track of, and people go, oh my goodness, the government have got to come in and help us do this stuff. It's like, no. Leave everyone to their own devices to a large extent. Let government be the invisible hand that makes sure that the referee, the umpiring, everybody is legal.
You know, everybody's doing good, adding value to the system.
Absolutely. And from there, we can do incredible things. Because one thing also COVID-19 has taught us is the world is not going to be the same coming out the other side of this. And that's going to have catastrophic impacts, but huge opportunities. The whole way of the new world is interesting because there's a bit of tradition, there's a bit of something different. It's that sort of, you know, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. It's all going to be remarkably, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Everything has changed, but a lot of things are still the same. And integrity, confidence, reputation, and thinking outside the box are core human skills that will propel you forward in a digital world, wherever you are in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope my guests at home learned a lot. So that was Patrick Young. We'll see you next time.
I look outside my window and nothing seems the same. I hear their voices howling and I feel the winds of change. Every generation has a challenge they must face.